I put down one instrument, a guitar, and I pick up another, one that probably most of you have with you. A smartphone. If we were trying to explain life in 2024 to a time traveler from even the 1970s or the 1980s, we'd have to explain to them these strange devices that every one of us have with us and take everywhere we go. What a blessing they are. We'd have to explain to them that these little tools can give us any information. In the old days, you'd have to go to the library to find out what was going on. But now we have thousands, millions of libraries right here in our pocket, in our pocketbook. But it's not only information, up-to-date sports scores and stock market quotes. It's also the main reason we invented them was connections to others. We have the ability to call anyone in the world almost for free. Instant connectivity. It was to make us into one world where we could all have a community. And we can also take pictures with it. Unfortunately, something went wrong on the way to utopia. Instead of connecting us and bringing us closer together, oftentimes it isolates us and keeps us from each other. Have you ever walked into a restaurant and seen a family sitting around the table and all of them have their faces in their phone? I remember last year, a mother and a father and two teenage boys sitting around the table, and they barely talked the whole meal. They just had their faces in their phones. What was meant to connect us in many ways, because we're so busy blogging, checking our mail, playing games, has isolated us from each other. Now, I said these also include, amazingly enough, cameras. Do you remember before smartphones, when you had to go get the camera to take a picture? You don't have to do that anymore. You've always got it with you. But instead of using these wonderful tools to take pictures of God's creation or of other people, we mostly use the cameras at arm's length, pointed back at ourselves in what are called selfies. The word selfie was first used in public concourse in 2002 in Australia, but it quickly spread and it hit our dictionary in 2013. We are indeed the selfie generation. With the ability to talk to anyone, we isolate ourselves. And with the ability to take pictures of God's beautiful creation and every other smiling face in the room, we spend life looking in the mirror and taking pictures of ourselves to share with other strangers who don't care about our pictures because they're also taking pictures of themselves. So what does the Bible have to say to us, the selfie generation? We've come to the right place in Philippians chapter 2. We are looking at Philippians, my favorite book in the Bible, and it is written by the Apostle Paul from a prison cell, and its theme is incredibly joy. How can you have joy in a prison cell? I might ask, how can you have joy in a selfish, self-centered, self-absorbed generation? I think here we can learn something about fulfillment and joy from a man in a prison cell who tells us how to have joy in the mess. We've learned over the past 2 weeks in Philippians chapter 1 that joy is a choice to surrender, a choice to trust God, that it's not found out of the mess or after the mess. We can't solve all our problems. We must learn in the mess joy, otherwise we'll never have it. And that's why it's good to know that it's dependent not on what goes on around me. I'm rarely in control of that, but it comes from what goes on inside of me. I'm always in charge of that. I'm in charge of my own joy. I need to choose it. And so he said it's not the absence of problems. Praise the Lord, it's the presence of Jesus. And Jesus said, "Lo, I am with you always." We started with a study 2 weeks ago saying joy is found in choosing community. Rather than choosing isolation, we need to choose to use these tools to connect to others. Community is so important. That's where joy is found. And then last week, we learned that joy is found in the one thing. What is that one thing? Well, it's Jesus. It's others. What we need to learn is to make the one thing others, not ourselves. And so, living in a selfie world, we must learn that joy comes from a loving, outreaching mind. Join me in Philippians chapter 2, where we just read. Philippians 2, verse 1, therefore, if there is any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, there's our key word this morning, if any fellowship, our key word from 2 weeks ago, of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy, there's the theme of the whole book. Fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind, one thing. I like the emphasis on one. I like the emphasis on the mind, because love is not an emotion. Love is not a feeling that comes and goes. Love is a choice, like joy is. And so I'm calling today's study the joy of a loving mind, not a loving heart. Why? Because love is a choice. So I want to notice the first big idea. Love is a choice. Here is why I should love others. Paul, I want you to notice in verse 2, he says, I want you to love each other. I want you to have the same love. What is he doing there? He is commanding us to love. How can you command someone to have an emotion? Be mad. What am I mad about? Be sad. Why? What happened? We don't take a command for an emotion. An emotion is a response to something. But Paul is commanding us to do something because love is a choice. It's something that we get to choose. Joy is like love. It is in your control. So here's why you should choose to love. Because actually, love, as I said earlier, is not a feeling. It's not an emotion that comes and goes. Love is a choice, and it is your choice. So I'm asking you, if you want joy, then choose joy by choosing love. First of all, why do I love others? Because it is the way of peace. We all want peace, right? Ask the Miss America contest, what do you want out of life? Well, number one, I want world peace. Well, we all want peace, not just so that our soldiers don't have to go to war. We just want to have peace and quiet, calm, right? Especially young parents want peace and quiet. Why can't we just all get along? Why can't we be what Paul says in the end of verse 2, being of one accord, of one mind? Well, because we all have different opinions, right? Choosing love means we can't all be looking out for number one. Because if I'm looking out for me and you're looking out for you, then we're not going to be of one mind, and we're not going to be of one accord, and we're not going to have peace. But if we love and put others first, as Paul tells us, then we can have peace. If you want joy, you need love. If you want love, you can have peace. You see, these three things, this is what everyone wants. Love, joy, and peace. They're all related. If we love, there can be peace. Do we want that? Of course we do. We long for it. We pray for it. Well, how about choosing peace? We can choose peace on the local level and the international level by choosing love. Actually, in the verse we started with this morning, Romans 13:8, we learned that love is the fulfillment of the law. You remember, love one another, a command, for he who loves another has fulfilled the law. All the commandments can be summed up in this. Love your neighbor as yourself, because love does no harm to a neighbor. If you love someone, you don't want to kill them. You don't want to steal from them. You don't want to lie to them. And so love is the fulfillment of the law. We automatically keep all 10 commandments if we love our neighbor. Not because we have to, because at gunpoint we have to obey the law or go to jail, We obey the law because we want to. And isn't that so much better? Because we love. If you love for the right reason, you don't do it because you might be caught if you don't. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be wonderful to live in a world of peace? It is possible. He is the Prince of Peace. Well, how do we get it? Love. That's the hard work. In verses 3 and 4, we also choose love because it's the way of joy. Remember, that is the series through the whole book, choosing joy in the mess. And I choose love because it's really the only way to joy. This is a powerful verse. Paul says here, let each one esteem others better than himself. No more of looking after number one. What we have to do is we have to have one thing, but we have to replace the one. And the one can't be me, because if it's me, that's not love. So Paul is telling us here in our selfie world, the selfie world that produces bratty children and miserable, self-centered adults. If we change who the one is, we can have love and joy. We change the one from number one. No. He's number one. And if we make it Jesus, and then we make others, you notice he says, esteem others better than himself, and then we put ourselves last. Then we have Jesus and others and you. And have you ever noticed that's how you spell joy? Jesus, others, and then me, you. Put myself last, and that's not the way to misery, that's the way to joy. Put others first. That's what Paul's saying here. Yes, love is hard. Love is work. Love, in one word, is giving. God so loved the world that he gave. If love is giving, that's a sacrifice. And it's not a dreamy, romantic feeling. It's not happily ever after. Actually, love is a risk of pain. It's a guarantee of pain, isn't it? Right? If you become a parent, you are risking, you are guaranteeing pain. If you are a lover, if you're a husband or a wife, you are going to be heartbroken. Why? Because God's heart broke when he loved. But the only way we can shut ourselves off from the pain of love is by not loving, shutting ourselves off from all connection. And that way we'll never get hurt. But that is a self-imposed coffin. Selfishness is a guarantee of misery. What is love? We said in one word, it is giving. If you ask a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, what is love? They've got some great definitions. One sociologist asked hundreds of children to define love. Some of the best answers she got. One little boy said, that's when a man sprays himself with cologne and a woman sprays herself with perfume and they spend all day smelling each other. That's pretty good. One little girl said, that's when I tell a boy that I like his shirt and he wears it every day, all week to school. One little boy said, I know what love is. Love is when mommy sees daddy dirty and smelly and she says he looks just like Brad Pitt. One girl said, that's when my eyelashes go up and down and stars come out of my eyes. But my favorite one, I saved for last. A little boy said, love is when Grandma gets down with her arthritis and clips Grandpa's toenails. That's love. Love is giving. Love is hard. How would you define it? In one word, it is giving. And that's the second big idea. Yes, we choose love, why I should love others, but here is what we do. You see, second, love is an action. We saw at Christmas that wisdom is not something you know. Wisdom is something you do. Guess what? So is love. Love is not something you feel. Love is something you do. Love is not love until it acts, until it gives. And so if love is giving, then it is an action. Here's how I should love others. How did Jesus love us? Did Jesus have a romantic feeling about us? Did his eyelashes twinkle? When he was carrying the cross up Mount Calvary, was he having gushy romantic feelings for us? No, he loved and he gave. He came and he died. And that's what we see in verse 5. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. If you want to learn about love, don't read a Valentine's Day card. Cupid. Look at Jesus. He loved us, so he gave himself. And so love is, in one word, giving. You simply can't be passive, feeling something. Actions speak louder than words, we say. Yes, they do. I can say I love you 10 times, but if I don't do anything about it, what do the words mean? Jesus put others first. That's why he died for us. Let's see exactly what he did. He first chose to give selflessly. So I need to choose to love by giving selflessly. Love is not giving and you give back to me. It is actually giving selflessly. Jesus left heaven. He was in the form of God, but he didn't consider it something to be grasped, to be equal with God. He laid that down. This verse talks about the deity of Christ. So does the last verse today, verse 11. Jesus is God, not less than God. He wasn't looking to become God. He was God, but he laid it aside. He didn't want to hold on to it, and so he loved us selflessly. This is the motivation of love. The motivation of love is not me, it is others. It's not about me. As a matter of fact, we've got love all backwards. For us, it's a feeling that comes and goes, something we fall into instead of something that we choose. And this is the way we define it. This is the way we say it. We say, I love you because. Think about the way to finish that sentence. I love you because you are handsome. I love you because you're pretty. I love you because you're talented. I love you because you're rich. I love you because you're nice. What do all those things have in common? I love you because of what you do for me. I don't love you. I want to get something from you. I love you because, selfishly, I'm taking instead of giving. What is love? It's giving. But all of those statements, I love you because you offer me something, are taking. That's not love. God says, I love you not because you are. I love you because of what I am. I love you although you aren't always nice or always giving to me. I love you although you're not perfect. I love you because of what's inside of me. Remember what President Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Love says, not what can you do for me. Isn't that our national motto now? We ought to just take in God we trust off the coins and be honest. It's what's in it for me. But that's not love. Love says what's in me for it. Many years ago, I was very young doing some marital counseling, and an older couple came into my office for marital counseling, and he told me, I don't love her anymore. And I didn't say it, but I knew it in my head. You probably never did. You probably don't even know what it is. I asked, why is that? Oh, because she's changed. I wanted to say, have you looked in a mirror? So have you. But what he was saying was, I never loved her at all. I had a take relationship, and she's not giving me what I want. And so I was honest with him, and I said, sir, can you define love for me? And here's how he defined it. I'll never forget. He said, it's when she goes and she gets my clothes for me, and she cooks for me. Oh, you want a servant, sir, I said. You don't want a wife. And I was honest with him. You come to me, to a preacher, I'm going to tell you the truth. Sir, I don't think you ever loved her. You haven't fallen out of love with her. You don't even know what love is. Love is not taking, love is giving. He didn't come back for more counseling, but he heard the truth. The truth is, love is not taking, it is giving. Jesus didn't come to be served. He came to serve, Mark 10:45, to give his life a ransom for many. And so that gives us a second thing that Jesus did. He not only gave selflessly, he gave strategically. And so I choose to love by giving strategically. Notice he came in the likeness of men. He didn't come to be a doormat, to let people use him, to walk on him, to enable people. When we give, we're not just giving everything away so that we are poor and homeless and need someone to give to us. We give, and we give strategically. At the altar, when I marry a couple, do you give yourself to this man, to this woman? I love unconditionally and totally one person. I choose to love, but I do it strategically. Jesus had a reason, and he just didn't lay down his life to be a martyr and die for no cause. He died for me. He died for you. Strategically, he gave 100%, but he didn't just give it all away and waste it. He gave 100% in a chosen place, as I say at the altar at a wedding, forsaking all others, cleave only unto you. It was directed, and Jesus tells us, love your neighbor. It's supposed to be strategic. Again, we get this backwards. We say, I love you, so, not so much, I love you, so give to me. Think about these shallow words that a young man utters to a girl in a car somewhere. I love you, so go to bed with me. I love you, so give to me. I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. That's not giving, that's trading. Trading is not love. That's an investment. I give my money to the bank, but not for free. I want it back, and I want it back with interest. I don't love my bank. I expect something back. If I expect something back, then I'm not giving, and I don't love. I love you, so give to me. No. Real love says, I love, so I'll give to you. Period. Not you give back to me. My favorite story in this regard is about a little boy who went into a lunch counter. You know, those old counters where they had those big stools. He had to climb up to get on the stool. And when the busy waitress came up to him to take his order, she said, "Can I help you, son?" And he goes, "How much is an ice cream sundae?" And she said, 35 cents. You can tell it's an old story. 35 cents. And so he started to count his change in his hand. And he said, "How much is just a plain scoop of vanilla ice cream?" And she said, 25 cents. He said, "I'll have the plain scoop of vanilla ice cream." And so she brought it, and then she went about her business, and she had other more important customers to take care of. She didn't even notice when he left. But when he left, she went to clean up his dish and to pick up the money that he left, and she noticed that there was there a quarter and 2 nickels. And she noticed that he had the 35 cents for a sundae, but he chose not to have the sundae because he wanted to leave a tip. And then it occurred to her, this boy that she practically ignored, gave terrible service, gave her the biggest tip she ever got. What is 10 cents on a 25-cent tip? I'll do the math for you. That's 40%. That's a pretty good tip. When I get really good service, I go above 20%. I gave on Friday night 30%. This boy out-tipped me. He gave 40%. And you know what she did with that quarter and 2 nickels? She put it into her apron pocket and she kept it to remember that every customer is important. And to start thinking about the customer like that little boy thought about her. That little boy didn't say, "I love you, so give me the ice cream. I love you, so I will do what I can for you." That's real love. Love is giving selflessly and giving strategically. And third, Jesus gave sacrificially. Oh, this love really hurt. Verse 8. Being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient, the point of death, even the death of the cross. Boy, he gave sacrificially, didn't he? He gave his all, literally. We are willing to give as long as it doesn't cost us too much. Okay, I'll sign up to help at church if it's convenient for me. Okay, I will help that poor person if I don't have to give up my weekend, if I don't have to give up the game, if it doesn't cost me too much, just put in if it doesn't cost me anything. Okay, if it costs something that I can afford to give. But I remind myself and I remind us that that's not love. And if you want joy, then you have to have real love, the love that Jesus had. That's what Paul is telling us. You want joy, then have love. Love like Jesus did. Here's how Jesus loved. He loved sacrificially, selflessly, strategically, sacrificially. You see, again, we get it backwards. We say, Hollywood says, when you see the version of love on the silver screen, they say, I love you until. I love you until I find somebody better. I love you until you hurt me. I love you until I can't take it anymore. But if we say until, we have already given away that what we have is not really sacrificial love. You see, real love, God's love for us, Jesus' love was, I love you, period. I love you, period. Anyone can love someone who loves them. Real love is the love that Jesus practiced towards us, that was selfless, strategic, and sacrificial. Christ's love is actually all three. And that's the kind of love we need to have. So here's the love that brings joy. Do you want it? Jesus offers it. Look at the end of this passage, verses 9 through 11. Therefore, God also has highly exalted him and given him the name which is above every name. But at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow, of those in heaven and those on earth and those under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Wow. Don't you wish you wrote that? Can you imagine Paul having just written that, stepping back and saying, wow, did I just write that? Man, I get goosebumps every time I read it and every time I hear it. Where's this world coming to? I'll tell you what it's coming to. Every knee's going to bow and every tongue's going to confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. We already know the ending. Here it is. The point of history is every knee's going to bow and every tongue's going to confess that Jesus is Lord. And Jesus wants us to love like he did. How? Jesus commanded his disciples. This is how they're going to know that you are my disciples, that you love one another. He wants us to love one another, and if we do, he doesn't want us to love one another so he can have peace and quiet. He wants us to love one another so we can have his joy. We start to think of others, and when we do, and not wait for a feeling, when we don't pray for a burden for others, but we start to choose to love others and to do for them, which is really love, then we will experience the joy that Jesus died to give us. He wanted to give us abundant life. So what do we do with these selfie machines that we carry around with us? Let's truly make them more than smart this week. Can I encourage you to take those smartphones and make them into connecting machines? Instead of smartphones, can we make them connect phones? How about if when you have a meal at work, everybody takes out their cell phones and puts them face down in the middle of the table, and here's the game you play. The first one who grabs their phone to check their calendar or to answer an email has to pay for lunch. No, that's not just with business. How about with your family today at Sunday dinner? All the phones go in the middle of the table, face down, muted. Mine's on Do Not Disturb, so nobody calls me while I'm in the pulpit. Put it on Do Not Disturb, and the first one who picks it up has to do the dishes. How about if we can you and I agree to have a week without this all week? How about no selfie week? Would that be tough for some of us? I've got some Facebook friends that would kill them because they put up a selfie every day. Sometimes I block them because I don't need to see all their selfies. What if you and I, instead of using our phone like this, turned it around and used our phone like this to take pictures of God's beautiful creation, and his greatest creation is the souls that he died for that pass by us every day, many of them going to a Christless eternity. Somebody that we need to pray for, someone homeless on the street. Take a picture and then pray for them. What if we use these things instead of for isolation? We use them for connection. Wouldn't that be great? That's where the utopia comes from. I saw a man in the subway a few years ago. He was shirtless, and it wasn't this cold, but it was cold. I took a picture not to exploit that man, but to remind myself, there's some people out there who don't have a shirt. What if I gave them my jacket? Maybe I did. What if we did those kind of things? What if we started volunteering to show up on Thursday night and giving ourselves to those 70 kids here in Awana? Wouldn't that be great? Why, many of you already have. Community is great. It brings joy. That's the one thing. If we can learn to love like Jesus, be selfless, strategic, and sacrificial, if we can choose that, we can choose love. Where is God's love? The man said at a community fundraiser in Brooklyn several years ago. He stood up, and they were raising funds to help the kids in the community, and he started in a strange way. Where is God's love in my little boy, Shia? Shia, he says, can't run with the other boys. He can't play the games like the boys. He's slower than everyone else. And he said, where is God's love in my little disabled boy? You could hear a pin drop. Where's this going? He's going to complain about his handicapped child? He said, let me tell you a story. I was walking with Shia down the street not too long ago when we passed a baseball game. And the boys were playing, and Shia looked up at me with big eyes. He said, Dad, do you think they might let me play with them? And the father said, my heart sank because I knew nobody wanted Shia on their team. Maybe they would, but it would be an embarrassment if you did. But he pled. And so he said, I asked a young man sitting there, he was on the on-deck circle, I think he was the next batter. I said, son, do you think it would be okay if my son Shia played a little bit with you? And the boy thought for a moment. He goes, yeah, sure. What's his name? His name's Shia. Sure, we're losing by 4 runs. What's the difference? It's the bottom of the 8th. We haven't got a chance. He can be on our team. He can play with us. We'll let him bat last maybe. And the father said, I was impressed. And so when the last player on that team got out, they went out in the field, and this captain, this young man, took charge, and he went to the other team and borrowed a glove and gave it to Shia and said, you go out and play in short field. You know, that's where you put the 10th player who can't catch. And you go out, play out there, and the batters on the other team went out 1, 2, 3, and fortunately no balls went to Shia, and the father could breathe a sigh of relief because he didn't make an error and drop the ball. But then came the bottom of the 9th, and down by 4, there was no way that Shia would get up, but the team had a rally, and they scored a run, and then they loaded the bases, and then it came Shia's turn. And now Shia is the winning run. There's no way they're going to let Shia hit, but the captain came over and said, Shia, you're up. Take a bat. 2 outs. This is like a dream scenario, right? Bottom of the 9th. Bases loaded, down by 3, 2 outs, and they send Shia up. And the father said he stood behind home plate facing the pitcher. He didn't even know where to stand. And so the young man who invited him to play came over and said, no, you stand over to the side, and then when the ball goes over the plate, you swing. And so the pitcher, in the spirit of things, came in halfway towards home plate, and he tossed the ball not overhand but underhand as slowly as he could, and Shia swung with all his might before the ball got there, and he twisted up into a pretzel, and he looked like a fool, and nobody laughed, and the pitcher sank in a little bit further, and he said, here, let's try again, But then the young man, the coach, he came over and he said, "Here, Shia, let me help you. Let's try, and if I put my arms around you, maybe I can help you hit the ball." And so the pitch came in, the pitcher pitched it even slower. The two of them swung, and they connected. He actually hit the ball. Didn't go far. It dribbled, and it almost made it to the pitcher, who was most of the way towards the plate. Everyone on the bench, and actually most of the players in the field, said, "Run to first, Shia, run to first." Fortunately, the young man was there to show him which way was to first, and he ran towards first. The pitcher could have thrown him out. He probably could have run over to first base and beat Shia there. But he took the ball, and with a smile, he threw it as high as he could over the first baseman's head into the right field foul territory. And they said, "Run, Shia." He got to first. And they said, "Run to second, run to second." Now the players on the field were saying, "Run to second, Shia." The first baseman had to show him where second base was. The right fielder went into foul territory, the father said. And then he, with a catching on, he picked up the ball and he threw it as far as he could over the second baseman's head into the left field foul territory. And now Shia is running towards third. "Run to third, Shia." The shortstop showed him where third base was. He ran to third, and by now, they're going to be impressed by how holy we are. They're not going to be impressed by how sharp we are, how smart we are, how good-looking we are. But boy, if we're like those 18 boys cheering on Shia, they will say, "Man, those people love each other. I want to be a part of that." If we love each other to the exclusion of everyone else, they won't want to come here. But if we can show love like that, Jesus said, "By this all men will know you're my disciples, if you have love one for another." How about if we just put it aside for a while, and then when we're done taking pictures of others, what if we choose to act? What if we choose to love and show that kind of love to each other so that people want to be with us and among us? Let's turn our smartphones into love phones. Maybe use it to text and call and pray with somebody this week. That's an opportunity for you to give, to act. Lord, help us, your people, to love. Help us to bring people to Jesus by the tool that you recommended to us, our love. Lord, help us to love people enough to tell them about Jesus. Lord, if there's one here today